Yo, welcome to Fast Forward Mindset Motivational Podcast. I'm your host, Coach James. This is where we rewire your thoughts, reset your mindset, and fast forward your life. No more rewinding, just discipline, motivation, and the truth you need to become unstoppable. If you're ready to elevate your mindset and take control of your future, you're in the right place. Let's go. Hey, hope all is going well, everybody. And thank you all for continuing to listen to Fast Forward Mindset Motivational Podcast. And it's been one of those things where this podcast kicked off about 2.5 years ago, and I never expected it to go where it's gone. And so I'm super excited about that. When I initially started the podcast, I never thought that I would have a guest that will be, willing to be on the episode. Not saying I thought I was going to be boring. I just never thought that it was going to take to that part. So I'm happy to share today that we do have a guest on, and his name is Hussein. I don't want to tell you too much of his story, but Hussein, I am delighted to have you on the show. Thank you for being part of Fast Forward Mindset Motivation, and I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much for having me, and congrats on that consistency and the ability to do this. It's hard work, right? To
Yeah,
continuously do that. So props out to you.
thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm Hussein Hallak. I'm an entrepreneur, a writer, and all around someone who is interested in the human condition and in helping people, mostly through business, and right now in life mastery, because I see business and life as integrated together, which is my philosophy and my method in life. So yeah, I'm here ready for any questions that you want to ask, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. So, first thing I want you to do is just give us a little bit intro about yourself and how did you get along the lines of mindset, motivation, or something along those lines of where you are today. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I grew up in Damascus, Syria, and there I most of the focus is on education in school. And while you go through school, even though it's a little bit different, obviously, from, let's say, the US or Europe, in general, you learn math, physics, history, and you don't learn a lot about the like your mindset, the tools, the skills that you need in life. You usually learn those, you pick them up from the people around you. And I was lucky to be around my parents who took me to places, and we had elders. My grandfather was a very well known person while growing up. So I would attend these gatherings and I see how people interact together and talk together. And I was fascinated with that. I'm fascinated with the interaction and the connection between people. So I started wanting to learn more about that. And I started picking up books and learning how to do that right after university, mainly because I wanted to do something, and I didn't want just to work as an engineer. I graduated as an engineer. I didn't want to work at that. So anything I wanted to learn, I'll pick up books about it. And I ended up being fascinated with books that have to do with how to connect with people, how to build yourself up. And that kind of started my direction, I think, towards what it means to master yourself and master your mindset. And it was a very unique concept that your how you think can impact how you do, because all you're learning is about skills. You don't learn about how the mind is very important. You learn about great minds and the ideas you think about, but mostly in physics, mostly in like Einstein, for example, or you value mathematicians or artists, but you don't learn about how those people who thought a certain way and that impacted their actions. And that's what got me fascinated, and I used it in work, and I started teaching people and doing that as a hobby. I had my business, but training became a hobby because it was everything that I've learned, and I go practice it more and teach it to others, so it deepens with me. So and the more it deepens with me, the more a different layer of understanding will open up. And that kind of became, I had these two personalities. I will do work and I will do training and work on myself and others. And then I got to bring them all together into business.
Nice. I like that. I was just sharing with someone the other day about how, yeah, when you go to school, they don't have classes or courses on the mindset, right? It's all about your
Mhm.
basic learnings, math, reading, English, all that good stuff. That stuff's beneficial for you, right? At least I feel like it is. But at the same time, there's never a conversation about how do you live outside of school, mindset wise. How do you, be able to find a way to be successful through the mindset? Because how I see it is that in order for someone to be successful, they got to have a successful mindset first, right? And
Mhm.
then once they have a successful mindset, then they can put forward and take action for further success. So
Yeah.
I like that point you made.
There is a good metaphor. I'm always looking for metaphors of how do you, or examples of how you understand that. But think about it: if you were to go and wanted to learn how to play football, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and if they teach you each element on its own, like this is how you tackle, this is how you run, you grow up as an athlete. But if they don't teach you strategy and how do you input it into the game and how to communicate with the other players, how to play as a team, which is what mindset is, you end up being very skilled but a bad player, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
any sense.
Yeah.
Because you have the skills but you can't work within a team, and we've seen that. We probably seen a lot of people who are capable,
Mm-hmm.
but like they might be a genius, a mathematician, an engineer, but can't talk to anyone if their life depends on it,
Mm-hmm.
which means they can't communicate their ideas. We see that in business as well. You can be very innovative, come up with ideas, but unless you know how to work with a team and build a team so that you can execute, it's very hard. So we need that mindset. You need to develop a mindset to say, I need to work as a team. What it means that I need to work with others. We need to win together, and then your skills will come in handy towards that. So that's why these are important, and we rarely learn them in school, except when we're put into a project and say work
Yeah.
together. But nobody tells us how to work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, right? No one tells us that it's kind of like learning on your own. And that's what
Yeah.
makes it so difficult. And why a lot of us struggle with the mindset that we have today because no one taught us that, right? And like you said earlier, you started reading books, and then the books about the mindset started to
Mm.
become entertainment for you. And that's the same thing for me. And saying I started reading books on the mindset, and I was like, this keeps me going. I'm engaging with this, right?
Yeah.
And so for me engaging with it, it helped me change and rewire my mindset. And so now I'm doing the same thing on this podcast, and that's why you being on this episode is very beneficial to share your knowledge with that as well. So
Thank you.
can you talk a little bit about how you got to the level of the mindset you have? I know you said you read books, right? Books are educational, they're great, but you have to put in action to get to that
Yeah.
next level, right? And
I
so
would
can you touch on what actions you took to get you to where you are today mindset wise?
absolutely. I put everything that I've learned to test. Books are a great.
Hmm.
I've read hundreds of them, and not as a competitive, like, oh, I'm reading hundreds of books. Is because I was so hungry for knowledge. I felt
Hmm.
like there's so much to learn, and there is definitely a competitive side of me. Not to argue with that. I am very competitive
Yeah.
in the area. So definitely, I wanted to read whenever there's a topic that interests me. I pick up the top books on that, and I have to read them all so that
Hmm.
I can apply them. And also, I put myself. So one of the things I did that I learned from Stephen Covey. He said the best way to learn is to teach, because when you have to teach, there are several things involved. Number one, you have to learn the information. Number two, you have to be able to string together the information in such a way that makes sense. Because if I learn something, I just throw information at you, it's not gonna be appealing. It's not teaching. And the third part is you need to communicate it in such a way that people get to understand it. So these things mean that information that you learned are now
Hmm.
stringed together and they're beneficial. And since you have to communicate them, you had to think about them deeply. So this makes you far more effective in the things that you've learned. So the best way to learn is to teach. And the other thing is that I used it in my work. I worked on so many projects, and
Mm-hmm.
I called myself being a yes man a lot when I was very young, because everybody who says, "Oh, we have this thing that is working," is like, "Yeah, I'll work on it, and I'll find the time for it
Yeah.
later." So what I would do is I'll jump in and I'll put whatever I've learned to the test, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
see the implications. And then when something breaks apart or doesn't work, I go learn some more. So it became a hunger of mine and a kind of an extra, I would say, hobby of mine to see what can I learn, what can I put to the test, what
Mm-hmm.
works, what doesn't, and then how do I refine it. And I wasn't afraid to add my own interpretations and my own ideas over it. I had reverence to the people that created that information and created that knowledge, but I also had my own thoughts about it. And mainly because what helped me is because we were living in the Middle East, a lot of the things that was talked about were
Mm-hmm.
developed in the States. So a lot of things will not work in the Middle East. And I don't mean just
Mm.
culturally, I mean like
Yeah.
they say, well, go to your local chapter of X. Well, I don't have a local chapter of X. So,
Mm-hmm.
like a speaker chapter, or
Yeah.
at the time there was Toastmasters. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that do not exist or not easy to find. Toastmaster did exist later in Dubai, which I joined. But these kind of things, so you have to find, well, I have a gap. I don't have this. What else? So it forced me to try to find my own interpretations that gave me space to experiment and find my own way of doing things.
Nice. A wise friend told me, if the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. And based on what you said, like, yeah, you have to be a great teacher, right? Because in order for you to be a great teacher, you're a great student.
Yes.
And once you start being able to interpret and articulate your information with others, you become very valuable. I know when I first kicked off the podcast, Hussein, my thing is that I want to add value to folks' lives, right? And if that value is just one person, it's just one person, right? But at the end of the day, I achieved my goal because I added value to one person's life. So
Mhm.
I get the aspect of the teacher part of it, because in order for you to learn it, you got to be a great teacher with it.
100%. Yeah, I think it's I like what you said there, because it's you have to have a mission that drives you to do that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if I were to teach you, coming back to our football example, I like sports, I would say examples, even though I'm not very sporty, but I used to love,
Mm-hmm.
I loved basketball. I loved sport of all time, but I'm the
Mm-hmm.
guy who will have a t-shirt that says sports because I don't know which team is playing, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy the game. And
Yeah.
so so I would say that
Mm-hmm.
that it's like if you don't have if you're playing and there is no purpose, like there's no scoring and all that, you may have
Mm-hmm.
fun for a while, but then there's no mission, there's no drive that
Yeah.
brings people together. So what you said there is like you had a mission that kind of hones your skills and brings all of your talents together in service of a goal and an
Mm-hmm.
objective. And that's very, very helpful because we are objective driven species. We wake up hundreds of thousands of years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
our job is to go hunt or find food or protect our family,
Um,
serve our community. This is what we're geared for, and that purpose is very, very
mm-hmm.
important. So when you start with a purpose, that helps you overcome the challenges that along the way, which all of us will face.
Yeah, everything becomes numb, right? Because the
Mhm.
challenge is there. And when
Yes.
the challenge is there, one thing that matters is that you overcoming that challenge, right?
Yeah.
It gives you, like you said, purpose, gives you something to fight for and drive for. So,
100%.
so let's talk a little bit about your book. You have
Yeah.
an interesting book, right? And
Thank
I
you.
want you to share some of the details about the book you written and the purpose behind it.
Yeah. I would say that I mean, this is the book, so it's my pride and joy right now
Nice.
because for me the book was the result of many failed attempts. Let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I was always trying to write a book, mainly because my I've always looked at writers as writers were my heroes while growing up. And
Mm-hmm.
funny enough, I never thought of myself as a writer or even a good writer. I've always written as a way of expression, and I emulated poets because poets were growing up in the Arabic culture, poets are the pinnacle of society. They are
Oh wow.
the
Mm-hmm.
orators, the orators of history. If
Mm-hmm.
you look at, let's say, Arabs didn't have a written history; they had an
Mm-hmm.
oral history, and it's poets who, like, when they start a war, it's poets who actually call out the. It's kind of like rappers, you know. They call
Yeah.
out which is rappers are the poets of our current era, right?
Right.
So they call out the others, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of have these battles with poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how the fight starts mostly, and actually sometimes how the fight ends. So the tribes used to revere
Mm-hmm.
their poets, and we studied poetry, and I loved poetry. It's language just hit so deep with me. And that's actually how I started my love for the English language, is listening to English music and
Mm-hmm.
listening to the words and what it meant, and reading poetry. So I always wanted that, but I felt that I never had the language for it or the writing for
Mm-hmm.
it. So writing stayed with me, but I never really considered it. And my uncle had one of the top book production companies uh,
Mm-hmm.
publishing in the Arab world, and he published for some of the writers and authors and poets that I
Wow.
revered. So for me, it's like, oh, this is the pinnacle, but I'm never going to get
Mm-hmm.
there. So I kind of did what I did, and I thought this will never happen. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I moved to Vancouver, I started writing. I started writing again, as in I was always writing, but I started writing again as in I have to write a book. I want to be an author, and it started like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be an author, so I have to have a book. And there was no mission for these books. The mission was to make me an author, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And 4 books, and I threw some of them halfway through, some of them even I completed the book, and I'd like, I'm not publishing this because
Mm-hmm.
there's no meaning. Like, I achieved my mission, which is writing a book, but there was nothing to drive me to do what's after. And after COVID, COVID kind of brought me closer to this idea that, oh my God, we're all gonna die.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Me
we're all
too.
gonna die
Me
anyway, but
too.
it's funny because we're all gonna die. My third
Yeah.
chapter, it says then you die,
Yeah.
because death is a fact of life. But
Mm-hmm.
when COVID happened, and kind of it impacted all of us, it felt
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, we're I can die tomorrow, and I have no control over it, because I had this idea of like, oh, I have
Mm-hmm.
more control, and I have more control over my choices. And that led me, is like, what did I leave my kids? I've lived through 3 decades of
Mm-hmm.
trials and tribulations and suffering and ups and downs, and I don't have time to tell them all these stories so they can learn, and they avoid my mistakes, and they become
Mm-hmm.
better. So I started writing the book. And also I felt, because I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and I led a community of entrepreneurs here in Vancouver, I felt also
Okay.
of a sense of duty and a mission to help entrepreneurs as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted the book also to serve that. So there was a bigger mission. So I started writing, and that's how the book came to life.
Wow. Interesting. It's funny you said that COVID was one of those things where, yeah, everyone thought they were going to die, right? I mean, it's like you're
Yeah.
going to get COVID, you're going to live for a couple of weeks, and then you're done. And it kind of felt like at that time that's what everybody's outcome of life was going to be. And
Yes.
so, we all clammed up because we were freaking out because we thought that's what was going to happen. But I like how you said you took something that could have led to tragedy and turned it into a gift,
Mhm.
right? Uh, Before I go, I want to leave something interesting to make sure I'm remembered for something, and just you got COVID and passed away, right? So I like the idea of how you put that. Is the book complete now?
Yes, the book is complete, published, and the way I wrote it is I wrote it
Mm-hmm.
in 2021. It took me like a year and a half of writing.
Okay.
Um, every single word, I don't know. I don't write like that usually.
Yeah.
I'm very possessive in my writing. I want every word to fit. Sometimes I'm
Mm-hmm.
loose, but in this book, every word was there. So
Wow.
I actually gave it to one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
artist. His name is Antonio Piede. He's a Portuguese artist, and I said,
Mm-hmm.
I would love for you to create the art for this book, because I envisioned the book as a book that has art every page.
Okay.
I'm a creative at the end of the day. I'm a designer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a creative director. I love creativity, and I
Okay.
felt that It's more of a conversation, like you're having a conversation walking in a gallery, and there's or a museum, which is some of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite places in the world. So I gave it to him, and I said, "Tell me how you feel." I said, "Oh, I love the book, and I would love to create the art for it." So he started
Mm-hmm.
creating the art, and that took a year or so. And then we created the colored version, and then we changed the size of the book. So he redrew all of
Yeah.
them. So it was a process, but I was very happy that it took the time that it needed to come out in the way that I wanted. It was a project of passion and love, and I wanted it to be the result of the result of care. I would say, how would
Mm-hmm.
you present something that is really really well done? And yeah, it came up. I think everyone that reads it gives a very that is belong that should read it, because there are people who would not
Mm-hmm.
resonate with it, but everyone
Right.
who I would want to read, like my kids, like even my wife, who didn't read it. She
Mm-hmm.
she helped me with the edits, but didn't read it until it was a final product. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Wow, oh, here you write about this," and it's like, I'm loving the conversation. It's like the
Nice.
same impact of having a conversation with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm loving that. Yeah, so I'm very very happy with it right now.
Nice. And so, if we want to go and purchase that book, where do we go and purchase it at?
You can go to husseinhalak.com,
Okay.
and you'll find all of it there. But you can also find it on Amazon and any Barnes and Noble. So you can definitely find it everywhere. So just write The Dark Art of Life Mastery, or write
Okay.
Hussein Halak, and or husseinhalak.com, and you'll find it there.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Thank you.
I'm going to take that information, and like I said, and put it in the description. So for my listeners, if you're interested in the book, I'm going to put the name of the book as well as how to go purchase the book with his link. So when you're ready to do so, definitely you have the ability to do so. So hey, I do got another question for you. And this is mainly like my closeout question, right? If you want to share with someone, how do they rewire the way they think? What would be a suggestion to my listeners to share?
Mm. Great question. I would say start by understanding that the world is divided into three components: a personal domain, a community domain, and a systemic domain. And your choices, a lot of times we look at, let's say, the systems, and we see our choices not impacting the system. Example of that, we talked about school. You can choose whatever you want to choose in your
Mm-hmm.
life, but it's not going to impact school, because school is systemic, or system driven organization,
Mm-hmm.
or I would say way of doing things, that it takes our collective to change to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So usually your choices impact the personal directly. So whatever choices I make, they have a direct impact on the personal domain, and then I have to show up to the community, and where I do my actions and I use my word to impact my community and to help lead my community to better. And then I have to work with my community and other communities to change the systems. Why is that important? That's important because when we make choices in life, a lot of times they will come ahead and they will hit against the systemic forces of the society we live in. If you live in America, for example, I'll give
Mm-hmm.
a clear example. In America, you don't have socialized healthcare, for example.
Right.
So you have to make choices, even though you want to make choices to move to a different, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
you want to pursue entrepreneurship. In Canada, you have like socialized healthcare, so you can
Okay.
leave your job and be an entrepreneur, and you're still covered health wise. So
Wow.
if you have a health condition, your
Mm-hmm.
choices are limited if you live in the state, because of the system of how it works. Regardless
Mm-hmm.
of, we don't want to enter into politics. They have strong opinions onto that, but that systemic thing will impact your choices, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not because of your own choices. It's because of the systems that it is. So just understand that when you make your own choices, they do operate within your personal, your community, and your systems domain. And there will be things that you cannot change, or will take a long time to change, or will take longer. So try to see which are the things that you want to change that are the closest to you, and act on those first. And then work with your community to change your community and uplift your community. and then work with your community and other communities to uplift the systems, which might not happen in your lifetime, might impact generations after you, but still worth doing. And that is how you enact change. That's how you should understand choice. Most of us understand, unfortunately, you say, well, I made my choice, but the world didn't change. Well, the world's not going to care and not going to change, but that doesn't stop you from making your personal choices and changing your life and impacting it in the right way. So hopefully reading the book will give you some tools and some changes to your mindset on how you enact mastery in your life. And just understand that while you're the captain and you may be the best captain in the world, the sea doesn't owe you anything, and the sea will do what the sea will do. All you can do is navigate it until you reach the destination.
Wow, powerful. I love that. I definitely love that. Well, hey, it's been great having you on the show. And I'm sure my listeners are definitely going to get some good nuggets from this episode. Like I said, I'm going to drop your contact info in the podcast episode description.
Thank you
Thank you
very
for
much
being
for
on
having
Fast
me.
Forward Mindset Motivation, and I wish you the best of luck possible.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the great conversation. I really appreciate you and appreciate being here.
Thank you, and you're welcome. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. And remember, don't rewind your life, fast forward it. Until next time, keep moving forward. Hey, y'all, I'm Coach James. Let me help rewire the way you think. All right, y'all. Peace.